Acolyte has had its full season air. I've been doing short reviews on this channel of every episode if you've been following my channel. So, you know my general thoughts on the show itself, but this is going to be a big season review for the Acolyte, possibly series review, because who knows if this is getting renewed for a season two. So, this is going to be my talk on the Acolytes. But I just want to make one thing clear. I'm not going to discuss anything woke, DEI, Mary Sue, none of that, because that is invalid criticism. Okay? None of that on this channel. I am not Jeremy Johns. I am not Nerdrotic. I am not the critical drinker. I am not geeks and gamers. Okay? Like, I am not clickbait. That is not what I am here to discuss. I am here to discuss the actual filmmaking and the process of production that goes into making this series. I am not doing that on this channel. You can go watch Jeremy Johns' clickbait. You can go watch Geeks and Gamers' clickbait. That's not what I'm doing here. And if you're expecting me to just trash this thing, I'm not going to. I'm not going to have high praise for it, but I'm also not going to trash it. So, with that out of the way, let's talk about the Acolyte. The Acolyte is set approximately 100 years before the Phantom Menace at the end of the High Republic era and sees a group of Jedi investigating a series of crimes and a potential cover-up between the Jedi and what is supposed to be the long extinct Sith. Now, I think the Acolyte has had a lot of potential in its first 5 episodes. I thought episode 3 was probably the strangest of those 5. It was definitely something that I wasn't expecting. I remember sitting there for episode 3 thinking, what the fuck is happening? And honestly, some of the pacing doesn't really mesh well with me in these 5 episodes. And of course, we have one of the most predictable reveals ever in episode 5 when we find out that Khmer is actually the dark side user. Whether or not he's a Sith, I mean, he says the word Sith, but people tend to take that stuff out of context, just like how they're taking the fact that Kayende Monday's in this show out of context, like, oh, he shouldn't be alive and all that, and he knew about the Jedi cover up, and then kind of, I'm not even here to like talk about whether or not this breaks lore or not, because like I've trained myself with Star Wars at this point to just kind of let that all go and just see what the show has to offer. And if there are things that I think of where I'm like, okay, that doesn't really match up to what was previously established, then yeah, I'll address it. I mean, I never thought that was Kayende Monday. I just thought it was the same species. But I mean, something like that doesn't bother me. But I guess what I'm getting at is that those first 5 episodes did have a lot of intrigue. I like Master Soul a lot in those first 5 episodes. And the actor, I'm not going to try to say his name because I don't want to mispronounce it out of respect. The fact that this was his first English language speaking role, the dude nailed it. He is great as Master Soul. Soul, I think, is by far the heart and soul, no pun intended, of this entire series. I think that his character has so many complexities to him, and by the end, he makes some really terrible decisions that I feel like the Jedi would make in this situation. And that's another thing that the show does a really good job of addressing the fact that the Jedi aren't supposed to be gods. They're not supposed to be deified. I don't mean to call out the fan base when I say these things, but I just see from episode to episode people complaining that the Jedi are supposed to be the good guys, that they wouldn't do things like this. There's also that line in The Last Jedi that Luke says,
The Jedi are romanticized, deified. But if you strip away the myth and look at their deeds, the legacy of the Jedi is failure, hypocrisy, hubris.
That's not true.
At the height of their powers, they allowed Darth Sidious to rise, create the Empire, and wipe them out. It was a Jedi Master who was responsible for the training and creation of Darth Vader.
He's right. I mean, when you think about it, in the fans' minds, the Jedi are deified. To them, the Jedi are gods. They can do no wrong. But when you look at what's happened, like when you think about it, the Jedi are stupid. They make terrible decisions all the time. Look at the Phantom Menace. They refuse to believe that the Sith were actually rising up again, that there was a Sith in the shadows. They refused to believe Qui-Gon. They were like, nope, the Sith have been extinct for 100 years. By the time they realized it in the prequel trilogy, it was far too late. When people are like, the Jedi don't fail, well, I come back to the whole fact that Obi-Wan failed to bring Anakin back to the light side. Yoda failed to take care of the threat in the Senate. The Jedi as a whole failed in that entire trilogy to contain the threat of the rising
The
Sith.
legacy of the Jedi is failure.
So I don't know, really. I mean, I don't see that argument, and I don't mean, again, to call out the fan base in that regard. That's just how I see things. And I think where fans kind of get a little twisted is the original trilogy and then much of Attack of the Clones, where you see the Jedi in their prime in the arena on Geonosis just hacking and slashing and everything. And yeah, that's cool, but the Jedi are supposed to be flawed. And I think that the Acolyte does a really good job at showing the flaws in the Jedi Order. That they're not perfect, that they are kind of stupid. They make really poor decisions, especially with Soul. And I think that that was a big part of what made the show really interesting and intriguing in the first half of the show. Also, throughout the entire show, the action I think is pretty good. There's some lame effects. There's a really lame slow mo in episode 8. It looks horrible, but I get what they're attributing to. They're attributing to like the martial arts style of filmmaking that you see in those wuxia films like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. I get what they're going for. But it didn't look good. Like when you see somebody floating through the air for about 7 seconds and then somebody floating back without any leg movement, it looks weird. But when the fights go down, like the fight in episode 5, despite it being kind of dark, and not you're not really being able to see anything, though those fights are awesome. The lightsaber fights are brutal. I love the sounds when the lightsaber blades hit each other. It's awesome. The hand-to-hand combat's awesome. Other than a few silly slow-mo scenes, it's all top notch to me. I think stunt work is also really good. Much of the acting, for the most part, is pretty good. I think, as I said, Soul's really good. I really liked Carrie Ann Moss and her couple of scenes and her couple of episodes. I think Manny Jacinto as Kamir is awesome. And they filmed on location. I get that sometimes it felt a little CWE where it just felt like they were filming in a forest, but it didn't, to me, if it was a soundstage, it didn't look like a soundstage. And I gotta applaud them for that. And I gotta applaud them for challenging my expectations throughout a good chunk of the show, because I really thought that this was gonna be something else. And then it wasn't. And I know that a lot of people aren't really happy with how this show turns out, but I did like the build up, the setup of this show. The fact that the show opens with a Jedi Master getting killed by one of the twins. So that brought some intrigue, and then you find out that Darth Teeth, or Kamir, Darth Teeth, you want to call him, that's what everybody's calling him because of the helmet design, is ordering May to kill 4 Jedi Masters. So everything involving that. Why is that Jedi Master dead? Ooh, who are these other 4 Jedi Masters? Why do they want them dead? That was more of the intrigue and who this dark side user could be. Once that is all settled, though, in episode 5, I feel like the show just kind of tanks because those first 5 episodes had all that intrigue and all that setup. And then episode 5 also, though, feels like a season finale. It feels like there's no more story here to tell. And after you get to that point, it kind of just chugs along where it's like, okay, where do we go from here? What do we do? Like the big reveal happened, the big fight happened. What do we do now? And a lot of it just felt like kind of a waste because what you see and what is revealed is kind of stupid. Like the big Jedi cover up, the fact that Soul essentially took these two twins from their mother from this witch covering. One of them wanted to be a Jedi, one of them didn't. He was trying to save them, and then the Jedi were telling him no, like, and he made these rash decisions. It was just a stupid cover up. But I mean, I don't think anything breaks lore here because we find out that Venestro, she covers up the fact that any of these events happen. She blames Soul for it. So everything with the Sith and the witches is covered up. So it's the canon is still there. It's just how we get there. I mean, I would have thought that this would have been more interesting. It just seemed like to me they brushed the whole Sith side of it under the rug and was like, no, we'll just focus on them covering up the witch coven, what happens with Osha and May, and we'll just brush the whole Sith aspect under the rug a little bit, but it's there. You'll see it, but just it's not as prominent. And I felt that that was just kind of stupid. I thought that it should have given a bit of a balance, kind of like a balance in the force, to both of those storylines to be covered up. But I would have thought that maybe covering up the Sith would be a little bit more important than covering up a witch coven on a desolate planet. I wasn't a big fan of some of the supporting characters. I think Yord was cool for his like 2 scenes, then he died. Daphne Keene, Jackie, I think, she was cool and then she died. There's nothing really to the supporting characters in this show that when they died in that 5th episode, it just left me emotionless. I didn't have any attachment to them. I felt that some of their acting was a bit bland. And speaking of bland acting, I want to talk about Amandla Stenberg because I like her in a lot of things I've seen her in. The first thing I ever saw her in was The Hunger Games, where she played Rue. And everything I've seen her in after that, I thought she's been really, really good. Here, it took me a while to understand what people were saying with Amandla Stenberg, that she doesn't change her acting up at all when she's portraying the twins. She plays the twins as if they're one character, which essentially they are. There's this whole thing with this lore where the twins were created, but essentially it's one soul. And that whole thing went over my head, honestly. I didn't really like it. So I get that aspect, but at the same time, it was kind of hard. When they're on screen together, it's kind of hard to keep track of who's who because there's no difference in how she portrays either of them. Like I said, I get that they're supposed to be the same person. It's like the whole Zachary Levi Shazam 2 effect for me, where Zachary Levi just acted like a little kid the entire time, and you had Asher Angel over there acting like he was maturing. But Zachary Levi was still playing Shazam as if he was a 5-year-old. That's kind of how I look at it. Also, there's something in the final episode where I was like, I don't buy that. I don't know if that's lore breaking, canon breaking, where Soul is dead. Osha mercy kills Soul because she's pissed that he killed her mother. She takes his lightsaber, and in the inside, you can see the kyber crystal switching color, and then she ignites it, and it's blue, and then she turns it red. That's kind of the one thing where I was like, yeah, I don't know about that. Some of the production value does look a little cheap for a show that cost $180 million. There are some cheap looking effects at times, and a lot of it is really slow, guys. Like there will be episodes where people are just walking through the forest, or those the two most boring episodes I felt were the flashback episodes, that which was weird. I don't know why they were placed where they were in the season. It totally killed any momentum that episodes 1 and 2 were building, and then you go to episode 3, and then it's just like, okay, it's an entire flashback episode. And then episode 5 I thought was great, and then was it episode 6, it's kind of like the aftermath, and then episode 7's another flashback, and I was just like, this is totally killing the entire pace of the show. These should have been placed somewhere else, or they should have been just spread out through each episode. We didn't need 2 full episodes of flashbacks, or maybe we did, but just place them somewhere else in the season, or just have these episodes be longer. Why? It's not just the Star Wars thing, it's a Disney Plus thing, because the Marvel shows do this too. Why is every Disney Plus show full of like 8 episode seasons where the episodes are half hour to 40 minutes? There's not enough time here to build as much story as they think they can. And that's one of my issues with The Acolyte too. After episode 5, it felt like the story was complete. That's why I said it felt like a finale. There's not enough story here to cover 8 episodes with The Acolyte. And I think that that's really my main issue with it, is that it feels so short on story, but yet there's so much time still, even if those episodes are 40 minutes, and they should have been longer. And to be fair, while it's intriguing and while it is interesting for the first half of the season, with a show with the name of The Acolyte, this should have been a Plagueis Palpatine show. Spoiler warning, you get a brief shot of Plagueis and you get a brief shot of Yoda in the season finale. So they're definitely setting up season 2. And that's another thing. It felt rushed. There's not enough story here for 8 episodes, and the last 3 episodes just felt like it was rushing to get everything done so they could set up a potential season 2. But I don't think we're gonna get one, because a lot of people don't like the show, and a lot of people, I feel like, just kind of soured on the show as it went on. So I guess I'll wrap this up now. The Acolyte, I think, has some good. I liked a lot of aspects of it, but I just think that those last 3 episodes fell flat. The intrigue was gone, the mystery was gone, the cover up is really stupid. There's not enough story to cover 8 episodes. It just felt like it was dragging on, and then it felt rushed to set up a second season that who knows if we're going to get. Some cheap effects sometimes and some really stupid moments in the action, but everything else I think is pretty well handled. Even the canon stuff that people are saying are breaking lore, I didn't see it that way, except for maybe the kyber crystal thing and the lightsaber. Maybe I just don't look too far into that type of stuff. If I'm gonna give the Acolyte a grade, like 6 out of 10, 6.5 out of 10, C plus. It's not horrible. It's not the worst thing I've seen. I'll say this, it is definitely the worst Star Wars show I have seen. It's not the worst Star Wars thing I have seen. I still think Attack of the Clones is worse. Sorry. But it's definitely the worst Star Wars show. I can agree with that. But there's definitely aspects of it that I liked, that I was intrigued by. And I just had to point that out. I wanted to give a fair, level headed review of The Acolyte from somebody that watched all 8 episodes, had his positives, had his negatives, had the things in between. And I hope that I covered all of that. And if I didn't, let me know in the comments section. But those are my thoughts on The Acolyte. I think it's a fine show, a bit bland, forgettable, but it had intrigue there for the first 5 episodes. It just didn't stick the landing for me. So if you have seen The Acolyte, let me know what you think of it in the comment section below. Leave my link to my website in the description below as well. You guys are the best. Thank you for watching. My name is Alex Madden. Stay tuned for a lot of reviews this week. I'll see you at the movies somewhere.